Okay, good afternoon and welcome to my workshop. This is the 5th week since having my surgery to my feet, and I'm becoming a little more mobile, feel a little bit better. Every week I've decided to take on a new project. I decided that this is the week I was going to take a family piece of furniture that we've had in our family for many, many years. It's a coffee table, all wood coffee table. It's seen its better days. It needs to be refinished, it needs to be sanded down, a coat of stain and I think tone oil finish should really bring out the luster of this table. Again, it's been in our family for many, many years, and it's going to be my labor of love to bring it back to its beauty. So Walter, my famous assistant, and I are going to refinish this table, and we'll tape it and take some pictures and show you our progress as we take it from what it is right now into something very, very beautiful. Here we go. The next step that I took was to number each one of the legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I numbered them on the bottom of the table, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the legs and then work on those separately from the top, so that when I put them back in the exact same spot that I took them off of. That's really important. Okay, I've removed the 4 legs. Each leg had 4 or 5 screws in them, with flat woodhead screws. And each leg also has a little button, which is a lock button. When the leg is put in the out position, or when the table's set up, this little pin locks in place in each one of these 4 holes around the side of the table. And when you're ready to retract the leg, you press the button in and press it back down. Now my table has 4 rounded edges on the side, and it's a solid piece of wood, but in order to keep the integrity of this really pretty rounded border, I've decided to use sanding of this block of sponge that will mold to the corners so that I don't change the actual dynamics of the rounded edge. So it shouldn't take too much, because again, this wood is very dry and it should sand out pretty easily. I've protected my feet with the handy target bag so that I don't get any sawdust into my surgically repaired area. But all I'm going to do at this point is to lightly begin the sanding process. And as you can see, it doesn't take very much before the previous finish and stain start to come removed. Okay, I finished sanding all 4 sides with the sponge sanding block, and then I took another sanding block with 180 grit paper and I sanded deep into the crevices, cleaned those up. Now I'm going to use a finishing sander with 220 grit paper for the top. On the top it is it's like a laminate. It's only about 1/16 of an inch of depth, so I have to be very careful about how much I take off. You can see all the imperfections, water stains, and so forth. The reason I decided to use this, to sand this instead of using a stripper, is because there's so many imperfections that need to be smoothed out, and I think the 220 grit paper will clean this up nicely. So that's my next step. Okay, I just finished sanding the top with the finishing sander, and as you can see, it came out very nice. Got out all the imperfections and where there was water stains. Now I'll take a tack cloth and clean up all the pores, get all the sawdust out of it, and get it ready for a coat of stain. Okay, the next step in the process for refinishing this table, and I think I called it a coffee table earlier. Actually what it is, it's a more of a card table. So what we're going to do is again go back to the finishing center with 180 grit paper, and I've already cleaned up the locking mechanism and oiled it, and used some steel wool to clean it up, get the rust off of it. So the 180 grit will go ahead and just remove the very dark finish that was on here. It looks like what's under here might be some sort of walnut, but I'm not completely sure. We'll see how it turns out. When I pull the paint off, I'm going to use 180 grit, and then I'll go down to 220 grit, get it nice and smooth and get it ready for a stain. Okay, I've just finished taking off the top coat of the stain and finish on the legs. I've discovered that the legs are in fact not walnut as I thought they were, but some lesser wood, but that's okay. What that does is allows me to go ahead and stain them with a very dark stain, which is what they were originally. So we're actually refinishing this table back to its original appearance, and that's a good thing. Okay, the next step in our refinishing project is to put the stain on the legs, and I've gone with a Minwax wood finish called Ebony. So imagine the legs are going to come out very, very dark, if not black, completely black. And the best way for me to do this is to just take them and hang them. In this case, I hung the legs from the garage door rail and put down some newspaper for dripping purposes. So that's what I'm going to do now, is go ahead and just give them one really good coat, and I'm going to use a foam brush to apply the stain. Okay, so here we are set up and ready to stain the top of our table, and again we're using a Minwax wood finish. This one's called Early American 230. It might take a couple of coats like the legs, because again this is pretty old and dry, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Okay, I've just finished applying 2 coats of the Early American 230 wood finish onto our tabletop, and it took the stain very well. I'm very happy with it. What we're going to do now is let the stain saturate the wood completely and let it dry completely. And perhaps tomorrow, if it's completely dry, we can put our first coat of tung oil finish on. So far, very good. Okay, our legs took about 5 coats of stain in order for the stain to completely take. The wood was so dry, it kept on soaking it up. But I think it's pretty well saturated now. We'll let these dry overnight, and then depending on how dry they are, tomorrow we can start to finish putting the finish on these. I've allowed the legs and the tabletop to dry for 48 hours, and now I'm going to apply a tung oil finish using a sponge applicator, and allow the legs and table to dry for another 24 hours. Sand it lightly with some very light sandpaper and apply another coat. I'll probably put 4 coats of the tung oil finish on it, and that should really bring out a nice shine and protection to our piece. I've applied 3 separate coats of tung oil to the legs and tabletop, and then in between coats I've sanded with a very light 600 grit sandpaper to smooth out the surface. Now I'm about to apply the 4th and final coat of tung oil, and I've been waiting 24 hours between coats. So this should be the final one, and well, here we are with our completed table. I'm very happy with the outcome. It took a total of 7 days from start to finish, a total of about 8 hours to complete the project. The cost was $32, which included brushes, stain, finish, and sandpaper. I think what we're going to do is we're going to give this table to our daughter and son-in-law, and hopefully Jace, our grandson, can use it to eat Thanksgiving dinner with his cousins and perhaps future brother and sisters, just like we used to. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining me on this restoration project. It's been a lot of fun.